Welcome back. And now for part 2. Learn is inscribed in the scene when they're bound. I use similar binds on you for the Christmas takeover. That was a giggle. Not how I would describe it. BTS. Baffling. Timid. Simpering. Moving right along. Marcy says that we all want what Cordelia has. To be noticed, remembered, to be seen. She discusses her beautiful face and she taunts that she's going to give her this face that no one will ever forget. The instruments are scary. This sequence is really frightening. It harkens to our last Rewatch episode. Cordy's nightmare was about not looking good, but this is the very dark extreme of that.
So the story The Invisible Man was first explored in literature. The original novel was done by H.G. Wells in 1897, and it's about a scientist that discovers how to make himself invisible and uses that power for evil purposes. Then, in 1952, the idea of invisibility takes another form in Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man, a book about individual and societal identity as a Black man in the United States. There is a simple line in it that sums up so much. I am invisible, understand, simply because people refuse to see me.
Wow. That is powerful, and it's distilled so profoundly. It's painful, it's heartbreaking, and you're making me think of another way that we become invisible in society. Attorney Ivy Kagan Bierman talks about how once women particularly turn 40, they're ignored. The messaging and the conditioning in advertising and in movies is that only young women have value. Ivy talks about the fact that she had a boy walk straight into her in a mall, bumped into her because he literally did not see her. She did not register. I think in America especially, we so need to change these attitudes. Ageism happens with men too, but there's so much pressure put on women.
Think how many times a day somebody stands in front of you in line or picks up something that you're about to grab off of the shelf or just, again, bumps into you and says, oh, I didn't see you there. And it's such a simple statement, but it carries so much weight.
Absolutely. And I think that we're also given this message that our value is being somewhat objectified and sexualized, and that there's a very short window when that is viable. And so it's interesting because you spend your life thinking, I don't want to be that. And then as you get older, you're like, why is no one noticing me? It's like a tug of war between, again, wanting to be seen and not wanting to be seen. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I hate that. But why is it not happening?
No, we're told when we're younger, you're supposed to be modest. You're supposed to be somewhat hidden. And then there's a very small window where you're allowed to be more of a center point, but not too much. And then once you get past that, you're cast aside really quick.
Yeah. And I think what you just said too about women that aren't in our industry but are in other industries, that they end up invisible in offices and they're not seen, they're skipped over very often as well. And obviously culturally we've had minorities being skipped over. The invisible aspect, there's so many facets to where that happens and where it's allowed to happen.
Yeah.
What are some of the Invisible Man movies and TV? There is The Invisible Man from 1933. There is The Invisible Man Returns from 1940. There's The Invisible Woman, also 1940. Invisible Agent, 1942. The Invisible Man's Revenge, 1944. Abbott and Costello Meet the Invisible Man, 1951. That's a good one. The Invisible Avenger, 1954. Yes. The Invisible Boy, 1957. The Amazing Transparent Man, 1960.
The Invisible Kid, 1988.
Oh, yeah.
The Invisible Maniac, 1990. Memoirs of an Invisible Man, 1992.
There's Invisible Mom, 1996. There's Hollow Man, 2020. The Invisible Man, 2020 with Elizabeth Moss. Ooh, yes. Very psychological, that one. There's a weird one. I have heard of this, but I have not seen it. Amazon Women on the Moon. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Ed Begley Jr. is the son of the Invisible Man. He believes that he's replicated his father's formula, but in fact, he's fully visible. When he takes off his clothes and goes naked to the pub, he's arrested for indecent exposure. This movie is a series of short films, in essence, and Michelle Pfeiffer is actually in one of them. I think that's it for who I can think of from the Invisible. Do you have any other Invisible Man?
I can't think of any others offhand, but I think it says a lot about how everybody is represented in all of these movies.
Everybody's invisible. And it's funny because obviously 1940 was a big year for invisibility. And then 2020, there's multiples. So that might be an interesting study too, like what was going on culturally that led to multiple invisible people movies.
Yeah.
Angel is the one to save Giles, Willow, and Xander. And he has the Codex. Oh, grotesque, monstrous, but not in the good way. The shot with Sarah that is slow motion with the fans blowing, it is gorgeous. Michael Gershman did such a beautiful job here. She closes her eyes and she listens, and I think that this is a fantastic lesson. When you're feeling outmatched, slow down, center yourself, and listen. Don't you think that's a good lesson? I mean, I think that served me so well when I do that in life.
Yeah, I think that so often we want to just push ahead. And if we continue to do that, we're not getting anywhere. So it's important to just take a moment and breathe in and pay attention to your surroundings and to yourself. And it's interesting to see what can change.
Listen to your surroundings and listen to your intuition, because that will not lead you astray. Your gut, I think, always leads you in the right direction. Not your mind, not necessarily your heart, but your gut. There's something, if you really just listen to the base of you in a way, to that deep down part of yourself, you kind of know. The FBI agents reveal that this has happened before at other schools, and we see something unusual, Cordelia being nice. She genuinely says thank you. And Drew, spoiler alert, this hints at her progression later in the series, but right now she can't sustain being genuine. Mitch comes by and she saves face and she goes back to being her predictable self. The end tag with the whole class of invisible kids is very X-Files. Didn't it feel X-Files-y to you?
It did. It also made me think of like the whole government MK Ultra thing.
Me too.
And that is still so spooky to think like this is not so far off from what has happened.
For those listeners that don't know about that history, do you want to fill people?
Yeah, the government ended up doing experiments on both soldiers as well as civilians to see if they could work mind control with drugs and torture and how much it would take to break down a person in order to control them to be triggered to do all sorts of horrible things.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me, too, of how the government gave asylum and new identities to Nazi scientists after World War II as well, again, running experiments and doing all kinds of things. The textbook in the scene reads assassination and infiltration, which is some of what you were talking about, training and all of that. The last page of the textbook, did you notice what it has written on it?
I believe they were song lyrics.
Yes. Yes. And do you know what song?
No.
You don't? You got song lyrics. You're so close. Sire, Rebecca. They are the lyrics to the Beatles song, Happiness is a Warm Gun.
Perfect.
Ooh, I like that one. I need a fix 'cause I'm going down. Mother Superior, jump the gun. Oh boy. Maybe Mother Superior, I mean Minion Juliet, you could become invisible. Funny, Drew. Better yet, I think you should have some quiet time for a change. Ah, Isn't that nice? La, la, la. A melody of silence. Drew, stop hitting the mute button. I think everyone can relate to Marcy. Part of the reason I wanted to do Buffy, as I mentioned in part 1, was because I had seen this episode. I certainly related strongly to not being seen, not being heard, not mattering. My parents both had narcissistic personality disorder. For people that don't know what that means, I'll say a few traits of narcissism. Of course, it'll be in layperson terms since I'm not a therapist. Narcissists have no empathy. They don't care about other people. They often don't see others as separate, unique, independent individuals. They see them simply as extensions of themselves and things to fulfill their needs. They want to be adored and on top, but it's not just that they want to be successful, because that's healthy. It's that they cannot tolerate the success of others. They cannot tolerate when people thrive. So they scapegoat, gaslight, and suppress others. They're exceedingly concerned with outward appearances, and that can be material trappings like a nice house and nice car and nice clothes, but it also is that they want to appear good. They don't care about actually being good. They just want it to look that way. They live in a constant fear of being exposed to others and also to themselves because they obfuscate the truth from themselves. They are incapable of love and they often lie. So in my house, I was desperate to matter and I yearned to be loved. And as you know, Dev and I made a film about growing up with narcissism and psychological abuse. I would say that before I met him, I always felt like I had this huge hole that I just could never fill, and this all-encompassing dark abyss that was always threatening to overwhelm me. I don't have that anymore, but I lived with it for decades. Also, since my folks were actors, the messaging was that it was dangerous to outshine them. So it was tricky because in some ways I wanted to be seen and noticed, and in other ways I wanted to be invisible, not to compete. It was confusing. This episode captures that feeling so well. It captures the pain of that. I remember the first time I felt really seen. Dev and I were friends before we got together, and I saw that he was making all of these incredible changes and these strides in his life. And I asked him, what are you doing? What's going on? And he said, I'm seeing this therapist. And I went to Robert, his therapist, and I had been in therapy before. I was a little bit worried because he was an older man. I thought maybe it's like my father and that won't be the right thing for me and whatever. But from that very first appointment, something very different and curious happened. I felt like me in a way that I never had. I felt seen and I felt powerful and I felt strong. And I was surprised because I was in a therapy room where often you're emotional or you're feeling fragile. But within that context, it was okay for me to be powerful in that room. And Robert was instrumental in Dev and I getting together, which truly has been the single best decision of my entire life. So I am thankful every day that he brought us together and that Dev was seeing Robert and that Dev recommended that I go there.
It's funny how there's always that defining moment where we can choose to make a change. And when we see it in somebody else first, it's so much easier to be brave enough to take that step.
Yeah, and again, that kind of harkens to what you talked about in terms of reflection, because then you're looking at someone else and it's reflecting to you, oh, look at what they're doing. Maybe I can do that too.
As I said before, I was one of the only students of color in my elementary school. And in the whole area that I lived in, we were the only Black family or mixed family around. And my mother was constantly telling me that I was setting an example. Everything I did was not just a reflection on me or the family, but on women, on our race. And so it was a lot of pressure to carry around.
Yes.
But at the same point, I wonder if my view on how I handled certain things was better because I wasn't doing it for myself. I was still doing it for someone else. So it was easier in some ways to be braver and to, I knew I was going to stand out no matter what. So I might as well really stand out and have fun with it. But I think at the time I did that for an imaginary someone else as opposed to just doing it for myself. And that came a lot later in life.
It's interesting that you talk about the boldness in some ways coming from that, because it's like you had a mission that was bigger than yourself, which was pressure, but also I can relate to that in a very, very different way. But with our film, the mission, it was really to use our story, because my husband comes from a very similar background, really the same background. And we wanted to use our stories as a device to provoke a bigger conversation. And that mission was so strong, thinking about the fact if we had been 18 and seen this movie, it could have changed the course and journey of our lives. And it made it, in a way, fearless and bold. And so it's interesting that in life, I think sometimes when you have a mission, it's a very selfless thing. But then what you're saying with your situation, it sounds like then you have to come to a place where you are doing it for you and you're not representing a whole group of people.
No, it's very strange because, at the time you're doing things and you're thinking that you're doing it for yourself, and standing back, you realize like, no, I was hiding behind this idea that I was doing it for someone else. And then later in life, the first times that you truly stand up for you, it's almost earth-shaking to realize like, oh God, I haven't been doing this. I haven't been using my voice for me. I've been using it still for somebody else.
And did you feel like that somebody else to some degree also was your mother?
It was definitely for her, but because I had younger brothers, I had this group right in front of me of like, it's not just for you. Here are 3 examples of who you're doing this for. So yeah, it was for her, but it was also definitely for them.
How did it manifest? Because they also were in that circumstance. How was it for you being the older one and trying to take care of them through this?
Well, they face different challenges because they're men, and also I think they had a level of pressure on them because I was their older sister. So I set an example for them that was often a pain in the neck to have to live up to. But I still remember once in high school, a guy who was a friend of mine had called my brother an Oreo cookie. And my brother is 6'8", coming down the hallway upset, telling me, that this guy had said this. And I'm 5'9". So I just looked at him and I said, don't worry about it. And I went up to the guy and I had my books in my hand and I said, I just want to check something and see if you said this to him. And he said, yeah, I did. And next thing I know, my books were out of my hands. I tried to jump him. And again, if it had been for myself, I probably would have just walked away. But, you went after someone I cared about. So a few people had to pull me off of him. And in the end, I just looked at him and I said, you know what? I know your mother's here today at the school. I'm going to go tell her. And so that's how I settled it.
Good. And did he change his behavior? Was he remorseful at all? Did he understand that was totally disgusting?
He understood it only because his mother came after him.
Well, good. I'm glad his mother was a decent person, because you can run into that too, right? Because people, where do they get it from? It's so unfathomable to me. I think if you're not a racist person, racism is hard to understand because it makes 0 sense. It defies logic. I don't mean that it's hard to know it exists, because it exists in every breath of our existence, but it just makes no sense to me. I'm always sort of floored by it. I guess it's like anything, we talk about that a lot when we have some Zoom discussions about the film or in-person Q&As. You can't really fathom evil. It's some big dark hole, and that's, Buffy looks at that quite a bit. We're not really equipped to deal with what it is. You just need to either snuff it out or stay away from it.
Well, I think Buffy is perfect in showing the world of high school and how hard it is to find your place. And unfortunately, I think where bigotry and racism and bullying comes in is because some people have such a hard time figuring out who they are that you can only decide who you are based upon who the person is next to you. So as long as you can put a label on them and you can decide, is this person better than me or less, then that makes you comfortable in who you are. And so I think that high school is like the perfect ground to feed that. You know, everybody ends up in cliques and we all have these labels that we're given, and even if they don't have anything to actually do with us, we're stuck with them. And then a lot of people wear them for the rest of their lives.
And what you're describing, so much of it comes out of fear. I need to be better than, I need to be something. And it kind of is that thing we've been discussing within this episode. If you have a really strong center and moral compass and authentically know who you are, you don't have to put other people down. You don't have to be better than anybody. We're all better and worse than each other. And it's that thing in a way with this episode that the character doesn't really know who she is because she becomes invisible based on everyone else's opinion, as opposed to knowing that it doesn't matter if they're not paying attention to her. She's got something to offer anyway. And I think that's a lesson that we all learn as we mature, to not base everything on other people. But it is really hard to do that if you're being bullied or you're being put down.
I think even hearing her play music is like a constant reminder of here is something that she's good at and contributes, but nobody sees that.
But maybe she should change the Young Frankenstein theme.
Go for something a little lighthearted.
Because it has that bewitching quality, which is actually perfect for it. But so what is the line from this episode that you would get as a tattoo?
Well, after Mitch gets beaten up with the baseball bat, Xander says,
maybe it's a vampire bat.
I think that would make a pretty cool tattoo of a bat with wings.
Absolutely. And it's so funny. It's such a great one-liner that he has there. There's actually two that I would choose between. The first one is when Giles is giving convoluted exposition, and Buffy says,
I think I speak for everyone here when I say, huh?
And then Buffy to Cordy.
Okay, can we have the heartfelt talk with a little less talk from you?
It's so perfect. What about you, Drusilla? Look, listen, learn, leeches, larceny, libations, lamentations. Part of that actually is in the episode this time. We seem to be making a little bit of progress, but that Drew, stop hitting the mute.
I don't think that.
Shh, 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 shh. Ah, music to my ears, as the Garfunkel chap sang. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Juliet's gotten on my nerves again, broken the sound of silence. Okay. Enough of something extremely different.
Different.
Valentine's Day, the last few years, I've had dinner with some very, very dear friends that I love immensely. And I was rushing and trying to get to dinner on time, had this beautiful red velvet dress in the car, and I changed in the parking lot because I was coming from work.
Oh, I did that so many times on the way to auditions. Sometimes you'd have 3 auditions in a day and you'd be changing in the car, like trying to find a secluded spot to change.
Yeah. And, after some time, you get pretty good at it. So I thought like, all right, I stepped out of the car, I smoothed the dress down, hopped back in, and I was fixing my makeup, got out of the car, put my coat on, ran over to the restaurant. Walk in, take the coat off, sit down, talk, having a great time, have a cocktail, start on the appetizers. And I keep commenting that like they really need to turn the heat up in the place and maybe our table's too close to the door.
Oh, no.
My back is to the restaurant. So everyone at the table, nobody else has seen what's going on. I finally moved a little bit and realized the entire back of the dress had ripped wide open when I got back into the car. So from the
entire,
shoulder,
like
the
all.
entire thing,
Oh no.
like impossible to try and close up. The dress is ruined, but from the shoulder all the way down to the knees of the dress is wide open. So everyone on that Valentine's Day in the restaurant that was facing me, including the waiter who never mentioned anything, got to see my lovely underwear that night.
Oh my gosh. When did you figure it out and what did you do?
Only when I started to turn and realize like the fabric of the dress was moving, wasn't going with me. At that point, I kind of accepted what was happening and pulled my jacket on and sat like that the rest of the night. There was nothing else I could do. So you could either go home or continue to at least enjoy a wonderful evening with friends and laugh about it the entire night.
At least it was friends and not a first date or something.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You remind me, I have a very good friend, Arabella. She was auditioning for a hooker part, as one does, and she decided she was going to get in the mood for it. So she was wearing the clothes and getting whatever, but she thought, you know what? I'm going to wear these thong underwear because I think it'll just put me in the mood, the character, and no one's going to see it. She goes to the audition. There's a long hallway of about 40 girls waiting to go in, and they're all sitting there, and some of them go in. And then for whatever reason, her time was, some people were early. They call her name. She gets up. She walks to the door of the audition in front of, now even more people have come. So it's maybe like 60 girls sitting there to compete for this role. She goes in. She does her whole audition. She has this moment where they give her some adjustments and she goes, okay, just give me a second. She turns around away from them to prepare. She hears some strange noises in back,
Oh, no.
but she doesn't compute it. She goes through this whole scene, and it's a very long scene. And there's a whole room full of people. It's like a network, one of those kind of situations where there's a lot of different chefs there, a lot of people there in the room. So there's like 20 people in the room. She does her whole audition, and at the end, the casting director says, thank you, Arabella, so much for coming in. You might want to know that your skirt is caught in your thong. So her ass had been out the entire time. She had all those actresses. Not one person said, hey, you might want to fix that. And I think what happened, she had told me she'd gone to the restroom there right ahead of time and that it must have gotten caught and she didn't realize. And she said, oh, why didn't you tell me before? And they said, well, we didn't want it to throw your audition. So, okay, I'll just have my ass out. That's fine. And then when she told me the story, I said, well, did you get the part? No, she didn't even get the part.
Oh, no.
She bared all. And, oh, my God, it was just a nightmare.
No, there's supposed to be like a code if you see another woman leaving the restroom and like toilet paper's on the bottom of her shoe, whatever it is, you let somebody know. So it's definite sabotage when nobody says anything.
For sure. And I think if someone has food on their face or snot, like you just say it because you don't want to be that person where no one mentions it. So you just say, oh, you have a little something there, whatever. We're all human beings. It's no big deal. I hate that thing where people will just leave someone and then, oh, you go home and you have like a big piece of food in your teeth.
Yeah, it's for a second of like it being uncomfortable or awkward. It's so much better than that person going home or into the next room and realizing you've been talking to them this whole time. You saw it and you said nothing, because that is so much worse.
Yeah, exactly. Because instead of one moment of uncomfortable, then your relationship feels uncomfortable.
The missing scene that could have been in this week's episode.
Okay, settle down, everyone. I have a surprise for you. A pop quiz.
Oh no, I didn't study. So much trouble.
Quiet. I'll get to you in a second, Xander. You too, Willow. What is it, Buffy?
We spent the whole week fighting
Fighting is not a good reason to get out of this trigonometry test. I see you put your hand down, Xander. You too, Ms. Rosenberg. Good move. The hijinks of your little gang does not go unnoticed. Wait. Xander? Buffy? Willow? What? I thought they were in class. Maybe it's time to go to the eye doctor. Anne-Marie, will you pass out the tests?
Anne-Marie. Of course.
This is a short quiz, but it will help me determine your grade for the whole term.
No way, Jesus.
We're screwed.
What are Mr. Mulch's important rules? 1. You may start the moment I say begin, not 1 second before. 2. Once I call it and say stop, pencils must go down immediately, not 1 second after. 3. No talking. Okay, begin. I said you can all begin, not just Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie.
This is hard.
Oh my god.
I'm gonna fail. Rule number 3. Button those lips. I have a few trig jokes while you work. Why should you take me along to the bank?
Because I will be the best person to co-sign.
Because I will be the best person to co-sign. Anne-Marie? Are you already finished?
Anne-Marie.
I beg your pardon?
Yes, I'm finished.
Go.
A plus Anne-Marie. A plus Anne-Marie. Quiet down. We must be nice to our only foreign exchange student. That's record time. Even for you, Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie.
Oui, Anne-Marie. Oui, Anne-Marie.
Spencer, I'll have none of that in my class. I've got a good one. If I frown at you when you hand in your test, it's not a good
Sign.
sign. Here is the worst trigonometry joke I know. Actually, I won't bother telling you because it's too
Obtuse.
obtuse. What is a math teacher's favorite dessert?
Pie.
Pie. What is that noise? Maybe it's my psychiatrist I need. This is an emergency.
Dire. We would have done homework and aced this if we hadn't been, well, saving the world. I can't believe I'm saying this, but since this is also life and death, I say we copy Anne-Marie's test. We have no time to waste.
What is it, Anne-Marie?
It feels like people breathing on me.
What? What the? Are you all right?
Yes, it stopped.
Okay. Class. Pencils down. Now. I said now. Come on. Pass your papers forward.
I'm gonna fail.
Wait, what? Willow, I thought you were absent.
Nope, been here the whole time.
Oh. Okay. I have a joke I think you will particularly like. I just saw American Pie. I gave it a rating of 3.14.
You do realize this is the 1990s?
Xander? Buffy? Oh, it's definitely time for my optometrist and my shrink.
And now we're going to reveal our next contenders for the Battle of the Uber Buffy fans, the ultimate trivia contest. Drum roll, please.
Hi, my name is Lydia DeVere-Yard. I'm based in Grafton, Massachusetts. I think I weigh in at about 40 Buffy watch-throughs.
Hi, my name is Liz. I'm from New York. I saw Buffy for the first time about 3 years ago. And since I saw it, I really don't want to watch anything else. So I think I've seen it straight through at least 15 times.
The demand has been overwhelming. All slots are now filled, but we will be announcing 2 contenders each week till everyone is announced.
Let's get ready to Buffy!
So, how about the vampire question?
The question I have for you tonight is, would you be a solo vampire, coupled up, or a part of a larger coven?
What's your answer?
Oddly, I think I'd probably be solo, which sounds extremely lonely. But I think unless there was somebody that I was comfortable spending eternity with, I don't know how I'd feel coupled up.
Too big a commitment.
It's a big commitment. Being part of a coven, I wonder how the politics would end up playing into it. So I think, if I had my routine and my way of getting through the days or nights, I'd probably go solo.
That makes sense. I would be coupled with Dev, no question. I would not want to do it without him.
I've certainly been part of an epic couple and part of a coven. Currently, I'm flying solo, which allows me to headline Re-Vamped with Scooby Dru.
Not the title. Scooby Dru. Where are you? Cute.
Minion Juliet, you are crew.
I'm not crew.
But you're finally accepting your minion status?
Nope. Not that either. Okay, I think that we are out of time for today. Sorry, Rebecca. It has been amazing spending time with you, as always.
Always a pleasure to enjoy both of you.
She's okay.
Dru! Gosh! All right, quiet time. Revampties, please subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. So many of you have been telling me on social media what you relate to in each episode. You can correspond with me on Twitter at Juliet Landau, on Instagram at Juliet_Landau, and on the Fans of Juliet Landau Facebook group or Juliet Landau official Facebook page.
You can also join our community on Patreon. Yes, loads of exciting things going on there.
Our Patreon peeps to be read in the credits: Dave Hall, Timothy Kendall, Danielle Harbour, Louise Brennan, and Brandon Key. It makes all the difference because we cannot keep making the show without you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please tell me what you relate to in this episode. Have you ever felt invisible? Have you wanted to feel invisible? What touched you? What resonated? What did you see yourself in? I really love being on this journey with you. You are unbelievable. I just think that you absolutely Dru, stop with the mute button. You're killing the moment.
It's about time we had some killing.
Let's do it again. Do it again. You're missing the see you next week. Okay, go for it. See you next week when we'll do it again. Do it again. Until next time, rewatch, revamp, reinvent, and be remarkable you.
Happy now?
Yes, but we need to be quiet. It's the tag.
You're it.
No.